How was that?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
I know that we can't continue on with the reimbursement rate in long-term
Right.
care.
I had one of the panel members meet me in the parking lot afterward of the Department of Health and said, I just wanted to let you know, we did agree with you, but we were afraid that they would retaliate against us if we changed it.
Wow. Well, today we have a very special guest with us. She is a licensed home administrator. She is a huge LTC advocate. She is the co-founder of Refuge Hospice. She's a mother, she's a wife, she's a friend. Please help me welcome to the studio, all the way from Duncan, Oklahoma, former state senator, Jessica Garvin.
Thank you so much.
I'm so happy you're here.
I'm excited to finally get to have the opportunity to sit down with you.
Yes, because you and I talk all the time,
Yeah.
but we never record it.
I know, we
But
should.
we solve all the world's problems when we talk.
We really do. So this time we'll have it on video.
Yes.
So no one can say we didn't do that.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Excited about
Absolutely. There's so many topics I want to cover
Okay.
and get your feedback on, because you have been in the arena of long-term care and hospice and senior advocacy for so long. And I mean, I look up to you, I value your opinion on things. And so a lot of times when I'm struggling, I want to come to you and go, what are your thoughts on things like this? And so there's so many topics. But anyway, we're going to try to get to as many as we can, because I
Okay.
know the people watching really want to hear kind of your perspective on it.
Sure.
One thing that's very unique this year, we try to be a little more researched and prepared. CON applications,
Okay.
when changes of ownership,
Yeah.
this year from January until June are up 250% compared to the previous 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of change of ownership in our state. Okay, here's the other thing. 81% of those applications are from out of state or big corporations.
Yeah. I knew that's where you were going to go with that.
Okay, so
I knew that's where you're going. We see a lot of new faces at the care providers conferences, even at the assisted living where we don't have CON. It's a lot. We have a lot of people that are really legacy facility owners that are getting out of the business because it's tough. It's a tough environment. You really can't be profitable anymore in long-term care, which it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek situation, right? Because you're profiting as a business off the lives of people, and so while that feels gross to some people, you have to be able to pay people and provide good quality care, and to do that you need money, you need profit.
Right.
And so it's sad because Oklahoma has just become a place like many other states that have been selling or losing these legacy facility owners, where you've got generation after generation of families who have owned these properties, and they're getting out because the business aspect of long-term care it's just hard to survive.
Absolutely. We're going to get to rates and inflation and those kinds of things. I've got some statistics on that I want your feedback on. But I guess my question would be, why now? Like, why is it all of a sudden Oklahoma has become a kind of a target area for
Right.
out-of-state people and corporations to think that it's a great place to buy nursing homes, and yet what bothers me is always, when I first came to the state 7 years ago, by the way, which is kind of hard to believe, 7 years ago, it was mostly Oklahomans taking care of Oklahomans. And I know I was an outsider, I get that, and I accept that, but at the same time, it was neighbors caring for neighbors. You would go to communities and they would go, well, that's the home.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, that's just where you went.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, 250% increase in 6 months.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It is, and it's going to continue to get worse.
It will.
Or worse, better, however you look at it.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things, in my opinion, that are causing that. Number one, Oklahoma is one of the most desirable states in the country. As far as our politics, I mean, we're a conservative state. And so whether or not you are, pro-gun and pro-life and pro all the good red meat Republican things, people on the coasts, especially, they see what's going on in Oklahoma as far as being pro-business. I mean, some of the conservative values that have really been made businesses profitable.
Okay.
So Matt, our Lieutenant Governor Pinnell, he always says in Oklahoma we bottle up freedom and we sell it, and that's truly what we do in Oklahoma. And so it's a great place to have a business. It's a phenomenal place to raise a family, and so there's a lot of things that draw people to the state of Oklahoma, especially when they're leaving these states that are very restrictive. And not, you see a lot of homelessness, and you see a lot of unaddressed issues that you're getting on the East Coast that are causing the quality of life for other people to be, just it's problematic. Like when you've got people that are defecating in the streets in California,
right.
People that don't want to see that or don't want to live in that, they come to a state like Oklahoma where we don't have that type of behavior. We don't have that. Just those same issues to that extent. I mean, we still have the unhoused populations that we've got to find something to do with, but our utility rates are low. We have good public education in some areas. Not every area of Oklahoma has great public education, but so we have some really good schools. Excuse me, we have some really good school districts in areas. We have great teachers. We have the pro-business mentality. We want to get rid of the red tape. There's just so many things in Oklahoma that make us a great state. We have a low cost of living. Correct. We have low utility rates. There's just so many things that are driving people to Oklahoma, which is a good thing.
Right.
But it's at the detriment of these homegrown mom and pop facilities, and that's sad.
It is. To me, it's like when you have a family member in a facility, in a long-term care facility, and something isn't quite right, and you want to talk to the owner. I get calls from family members. You've gotten calls from family members, right? Who do you call then?
Right.
It's like the DMV.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You take a number and maybe some blind person out of Chicago calls you back one day, but they've never been in the facility. They're looking at margins, they're looking at trade value, they're looking at stock price and shareholder value. Is that what we want as a state?
Yeah. Until we really do something about how much we reimburse, I think we're going to continue to see that happening.
Okay. And so you think it's really a reimbursement issue?
I think it's twofold. I think, like I said, there's a lot of things that are driving people to want to be in Oklahoma, and so that's part of it.
Okay.
Because you talk to some of these out-of-state owners, and they see the benefit of being in Oklahoma because of all of the, like I said, the pro-business mentality that we have, the pro-family, the pro-education, like some of the things that we do here that we're doing really well, they see and want to be a part of that, and that's great. But at the same time, when you get that happening, we see it with insurance companies.
Right.
You get out-of-state people involved, and they send all of that money back to their home state.
Correct.
So that money doesn't stay here in Oklahoma, so it's not benefiting Oklahomans. And so while we have, like I said, let's set aside the fact that we've got all of these great things going on in Oklahoma, we also have that other side where the reimbursement's really low, but that because of these other things, that leaves a lot of room for profitability.
Okay.
So, like I said, I think it's twofold. And with the CON, us being a CON state, there's a ton of data that shows the pros and cons, mostly cons, of not having a certificate of need.
Right.
There are states that have gone to CON and then backed off of it and then gone back to it because they're seeing that care typically declines.
Correct.
When you don't have that. And so I think because we have the certificates of need, it also is part of that driver to get people to do business here because they know there's not a whole lot of competition in some people's eyes. But in reality, I think that having the CON actually makes facilities more competitive.
Okay.
So I know that's not the typical Republican answer that a lot of people look for, but I think that that's the truth, and there's data to back that up.
I think you're right. And what's hard about it is you say that's not the typical Republican answer because, like you mentioned, we are such a red state. Sometimes the experience that the day-to-day operations, the thing that you've been in the industry for 20 years, it might not walk the party line, but it's the reality of what's really going on because we're talking about a low reimbursement rate, but at the same time we have a gubernatorial race going on right now. We're talking about, eliminating property taxes, eliminating the state income tax.
Sales tax is
Sales
gonna go away,
tax
too.
go away.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, how do we can't take care of what we have, but
Right.
yet at the same time, but we're going to eliminate all the tax base. I'm all for lowering taxes. I don't want to
Sure.
pay taxes
Yeah,
anymore either.
same.
But at the same time, I know that we can't continue on with the reimbursement rate in long-term
Right.
care.
Yeah. Well, and not to mention that, but when we talk about property taxes and all the other taxes that people are trying to eliminate, I don't know about you, but I still want police and fire to show up if there's an emergency.
Exactly.
So,
exactly. And one day when I go to a long-term care facility, I want to make sure it's adequately staffed and there's
Exactly.
capital improvements that have been done, and I've got latest technology of medicine and that kind of thing, which will not happen at this
Right.
reimbursement rate.
Yeah, no, it's totally true. And then you take the reimbursement rate and then you add all the tax cuts on top of it, and it's just the perfect storm of
That's the
awful.
way I'm seeing
It's
it.
a
I'm looking
perfect
at it.
storm of awful.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I'm seeing it. Okay, so there's another piece of this I think that adds a lot into what you're saying. Reimbursement rate is a huge thing. To me, that's a self-inflicted wound. We choose legislatively, we elect people that's going to decide that reimbursement rate due to budget priorities. And so to me, that's very much a self-inflicted wound. We're choosing that. The other side of it is, this is an interesting statistic, and I want to get your feedback on this. There, in 2025, the immediate jeopardy fines and tags increased 412%.
Is that just in Oklahoma?
Just in
or across
Oklahoma.
Okay, yeah. So
Just in Oklahoma, 412%.
I think nationwide it's actually up close to that, in the mid to late 300s, I think is the national average. So, I think I could go on and on. I could spend the next 37 minutes of our time actually on this topic. So it's a real problem. It's a huge frustration of mine, and I know so many others in the industry.
Absolutely.
But I know that this is a federal push. I think it started with the Biden administration, and I don't know that President Trump is really paying attention to it because he's got his mind other places. But it's a huge issue. We have lost, I want to say it's like 110 or 120 long-term care facilities in the state of Oklahoma over the last 15 years that have just closed.
Wow.
And so it's scary because, we're looking at staffing mandates again, probably within the next few years. We're looking at low reimbursement rates, not only in Oklahoma, but if the federal dollars are cut, like we're anticipating being cut, that will eventually trickle down into long-term care. There's just so many things that are going on federally that do impact us boots on the ground in facilities. And the CMPs that come along, the civil money penalties, are part of that. And so when you have facilities in Oklahoma that are making $20 to $30 less than it costs to take care of residents every day.
According to the Department of Health number.
Exactly.
That's not owners saying, hey, I'm losing $30
Yeah.
a day. That's the Department of Health going, no, actually, we're reimbursing them $30 less per day, per resident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Healthcare Authority pulls that information from the cost reports that we are legally required to submit.
And then they audit them as well.
then they
so it's
audit
like
them.
I can't make up the numbers, you know what I mean?
They're
It's
very real.
They're very real
They're very
numbers.
real.
And then they report it to the legislature that says, hey, I think from the last number that I saw, it was actually higher than that. It was $42 per day on a long-term care resident. And so it's $42 a day. We're just going to pay less than what it really costs.
Yeah.
And then but at the same time, we have no ability to approve anyone for Medicaid. That's done at the state authority as well.
Yeah.
So how in the world can the state go, we're going to approve this person for long-term care, but we're not going to pay the full cost of their care. You, private citizen, you pay for that.
Yeah.
How is that even?
So I can tell you, just having been on the legislative side of
would
that.
love to hear this perspective.
The problem is that it's not just long-term care that needs the money, right? So we have a set number of pennies that we can spend as the legislature, and every single industry is in the arena fighting for those dollars.
Right.
And so, we would you probably have heard people say we need to fully fund education. I have yet to have a teacher that can tell me what fully funding education is, because they don't have cost reports like we do, not to the extent that we do. They do cost reporting, but we can account for every single penny to the resident specifically where it went, because we are legally required to do that.
Right.
And so it's really aggravating. It's frustrating because yes, you have education saying fully fund us. You have nursing homes saying fully fund us. You have transportation. You have ODOT saying fully fund us. You have the troopers saying fully fund us. I mean, it is every facet of every discipline. And so you can't fully fund education because then you're taking even more money away from long-term care and police and state troopers and teacher retirement and I mean all of these other places that need money, which is why people like Pinnell have talked about diversifying our economy because there's just no money. So it's not that the legislature, I mean, I can tell you for me, I was fighting for long-term care funding.
You were.
As were a lot of other people.
You absolutely were.
But when there's a dollar that has to be split between 40 different agencies, everyone doesn't get fully funded. And so it's just a matter of trying to figure out how much people can survive on, because in Oklahoma, we don't have enough income to pay for all of our critical services. And that's really where the problem is.
Okay. I mean, that actually makes sense. Did you, when you look at that number of long-term care, if it is 42, if it's 38, somewhere between those ranges, depending on what year it is, because every year that number moves.
It gets bigger.
It gets bigger, honestly. You know, every year it gets bigger.
Yeah.
And so when I look at that, do you see other disciplines and facets of the budget being so underfunded?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Really?
You look at
Okay.
childcare.
Okay.
Childcare is a huge one. They're about as underfunded as long-term care. And that's why we have so many childcare facilities shutting down. That's why people can't find care. That's why your employees, your aides, your nurses, they can't find care for their kids because all of the childcare facilities are shutting down.
But in some world, wouldn't it be okay if I received more funding so I could pay higher wages so that the private individual could choose their child care provider and pay for it themselves?
100%.
You know what I'm saying?
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
Instead of trying to subsidize everything that we might possibly need,
Yeah.
it's just what if we just were, like you said, pro-business, and we were going to fund pro-business and move that direction?
Sure. Yeah, but you also have to think about the fact that, like, in theory that works, but then you have staff at the daycare centers, childcare centers that make about the same as CNAs. So their argument is the same. Their argument is fully fund us so that we can provide enough support so that other people can bring their kids here, because they are having such a problem, just as much as long-term care is having a problem with staffing, so are they. So their argument is exactly the same. Fund us enough so that the people who need us, whether it's private pay or Medicaid funded, can bring their kiddos here. Otherwise, we're going to shut down.
Yeah,
it's exactly the same argument.
It's just kind of the spinning argument, the same
Absolutely.
thing. It's
Chicken or the egg.
Chicken and egg the whole time.
Exactly.
Okay, absolutely. And so then you get back to even to the CMPs and that sort of thing. There's no budget for CMPs.
No.
You know what I mean? And so you're already losing the $40 a day per resident.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, because you forgot to close the med cart, you get a $50,000 fine. Where does that come from? And how are you expected to do any capital improvements? How are you expected to improve the staff? How are you expected to pay your staff more, provide better benefits, provide child care, any of those other things? Because now I've got to give this $50,000 out to some unknown agency. I don't know where it goes, what it's being used for, where it's spent.
I can tell you all that. So it goes into a fund at the State Department. Part of that goes to CMS, but they have a fund where they can use it for discretionary spending, but it is very specific. Like they have to use it for education, for long-term care. There's just several things that they can use it for. Grants is another thing they can use it for. So during COVID, there were grants that allowed people to get like iPads, for example, and they use the CMP funding for that. So there are things that they specifically can use it for. And so it's not like they can just, go buy a Jaguar for the commissioner. But it is frustrating because you're right. So much of that money just sits in a pot because it's not like the legislature can say, take all of that money and turn around and use it to reimburse facilities or, fill that gap, because CMS has restrictions on it as well. And so it's really aggravating because it's just this pot of money that's sitting there I don't know if it collects interest or not, but let's hope to God that it does.
Right.
But it's just something that sits there until they figure out what to do with it.
Well, you talk about it being education. If there's a pot of money sitting there, what if we had more, and this is just completely just throwing off an idea here, but what if it was someone that actually worked for the state, that was not a surveyor, that would come to your facility and said, hey, let's partner together. I see some deficiencies and things you could be doing better, so that when your survey is here, that these issues are already addressed.
Yeah.
Because if the whole idea is to provide better, if the whole survey
care.
process is not the gotcha game, it's because we want you to improve your care.
Yeah.
Why are we not addressing that instead of playing gotcha games?
It's really frustrating. And I mean, I'm living proof of that. Like, we had a situation in our facility where a person, one of our residents, this has been several years ago, but one of our residents had been tied down by bed sheets by her family. They were inserting meds rectally at home.
Gosh.
APS came in, took custody of her, placed her in our facility. The woman fell. Well, of course, we're not sedating her with rectal meds, and then we're not tying her down with bed sheets. And so she fell, and the family tried to sue us. And it's like, there's a reason that she's here. They knew that she had severe Alzheimer's, and so when we started following the rules, which is what got the family in trouble in the first place, so we had to go through the whole the IDR process and the IIDR process, and civil money penalties come into play. I mean, just all of that. And it's so aggravating because that didn't teach anyone anything, because we didn't do anything wrong, but we were still penalized.
Right.
And so, the sad thing is we had a surveyor from that situation that actually left the department because they just blatantly disagreed that they should be writing us a deficiency in the first place.
Which makes you wonder who's controlling that. Then.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
And it's sad
Who's
because,
making them write that deficiency?
Right.
Yeah.
But
we never hear, though. We don't know that.
We don't know.
We don't know that.
We don't know. But I will say, so I do know that, and that's when I go back to the Biden administration, when they looked at the staffing mandates and increasing staffing mandates, when they looked at increasing IJs and things like that, it was to penalize the bad guys, penalize the bad players who were understaffing and not providing quality care, but then it negatively impacts all of the rest of us who are providing good care.
Right.
And so it is very frustrating, and I don't know at what point the system just falls apart before people in DC and CMS in Baltimore realize what they're doing to people, because it's creating a system where there's not enough beds.
Right, exactly.
We can't afford them. And so what's sad is this, like the woman I talked about, who her family was tying her down with bed sheets. APS is going to run out of places to put people that really desperately need the care because of these things like the CMPs.
Or as operators to go, no, I'm not taking anyone like that. I don't care what you do
Absolutely.
with her, but I'm not going to take her because I'm going to get penalized. I'm going to get a CMP. I'm going to get an IJ for doing what's right by her.
Right.
So how do you, they're almost forcing themselves into a situation where owners can't afford to take individuals like this.
Yeah.
The families can't take those people. And so these people end up hospitals?
That's
I'm not
my
sure.
question. Yeah, that's my question. Well, and you also have to think about, like you said, you've got situations where, unfortunately, we're closing facilities, and DHS is coming in, they're stepping in, they're taking care of very, very vulnerable people who literally have no place to go. It is going to be like, where are they going to go? I mean, I think that's a really valid question. But I would go even a step further. It's even like the informed consent with antipsychotics.
Right, absolutely.
We have a huge problem in Oklahoma with mental health, and it's across the country, don't get me wrong, but specifically in Oklahoma, we have a lot of unhoused population that are moving in from other states. Medical marijuana has caused schizophrenia, drug-induced schizophrenia, and other mental health issues, and these people are living on the streets because they're addicted to substances, for some of them, and that's not everyone. Some people choose to live that way, but some of them just have severe mental health issues, and they're trying to put them in nursing homes.
Right.
And so now you have the situation where a predominant amount of, especially in the urban areas, you've got a predominant amount of these individuals who need housing, who are willing to go live somewhere, but they don't have anywhere to go. So they're ending up in our buildings, but then we have these restrictive policies about antipsychotic medications. And so it puts a guard up and says, well, wait, we don't want to take them because now we're going to get penalized.
Right. From regulations that were written in 1984,
right.
Here we are 50 years later going, hey, this is not who we are anymore.
Right.
We've got peg tubes and tracheotomies, and when this was written, it was like, Mama's a little forgetful and needs a shower.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's totally different business operations that we're doing here, right?
Right.
And so, okay.
Well, and even meds have changed.
Correct, absolutely.
So,
the things we were writing regulation for in the 80s was like, hey, we're not giving people lithium around the clock.
Yeah.
Now we have more advanced medications.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's totally different, right?
Yeah.
you brought the process of the IDR, the IIDR process, and that's something else. There is no state statistic. There is no published records on that.
Weird.
It's weird how that just gets left off of the public website, and you have to actually do a FOIA request, which I've attempted that many times and absolutely
Nothing.
fails every single time.
Okay.
So I guess that's not a real thing. But regardless, I hear a lot of owners talking about, okay, well, we did the IDR process. We won the IDR process. And then the state just said, no, we're not going to accept that and overturn it.
Really?
That is very common right now.
I have never heard that.
I've heard
That's
from
crazy.
2 this week, actually, that's already happened too. They said,
Wow.
we got the letter saying, yes, you have won the IDR. The panel voted in your favor. We're recommending we lower this from a J down to a D or an F,
Sure.
whatever it looks like,
Yeah.
as far as lowering it down to the severity, the scope and severity. It goes back to the state, and they said, no, we disagree with that.
That's
So how is
crazy.
that fair?
Yeah, I don't even know how to answer that one. I hadn't been aware of that. I will tell you we had an IDR experience, and it was actually about the same thing I was just mentioning.
Okay.
So this was, probably 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago. So it's been a while.
Okay.
But we had a situation where we did the IDR. The panel disagreed. I had one of the panel members meet me in the parking lot afterward of the Department of Health and said, I just wanted to let you know, we did agree with you, but we were afraid that they would retaliate against us if we changed it.
Wow. Wow.
And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. And so it floored me. But we went ahead and called CMS, or I called CMS, explained the situation to them, sent them all of the information to file for an IIDR, and the CMS surveyor came back and said, we're just going to lower this. You should have never been written a deficiency.
Correct.
There's all the documentation is there showing you all did not do anything wrong. You were following the regulations. They didn't even make us go through the IIDR process. She told me, do not hire an attorney. We're just going to fix this.
Good for you. Good
And
for you.
It was just so sad that it had to get to that point because some facilities aren't that lucky.
You're right.
Some they do have to hire an attorney, and they do have to pay the CMP to its fullest extent. And I mean, I remember begging, I don't remember what the number is, but if you get a CMP over a certain amount, you can't have the nurse aid program in your facility.
Correct.
I don't remember what that number
is.
is.
50,000 or 35,000. I think they're talking about raising it, but I think it's 35.
Yeah. Okay. So,
which is low these days because everything's going to exceed 35,000. But
exactly. So I just remember, and again, this is 7, 8 years ago, so it could have been like 20,000.
Okay.
I remember begging them to change the CMP from, originally it was like 180,000, and then it went to like 20,000, and I just remember saying, can you please make it $19,999.99 because we are in an area where we cannot find nurse aides,
right,
and we desperately need the training program.
Yeah,
and they wouldn't. So
Isn't that crazy?
And I'm like, you're just hurting yourselves,
right?
Because you're creating a situation where we can't get a training program,
right.
So we can't have enough staff. So now we're going to have to lower the amount of people that we can take, so you're just kicking yourself in the foot.
It doesn't make any sense.
No.
So many of these are self-inflicted. If we had partnerships around the table, we could fix these things because I think it's everyone's desire for us to run a good, solid, stable, predictable, business that can last and sustain, give people employment that they can count on and not that's ups and downs and, shutting the home down or maybe, all of those kinds of things. And yet provide really good care for vulnerable individuals. I think we all want the same thing, but we can't seem to get there together.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
We made the decision as an organization last year that we will no longer participate in the IDR process because of this. We don't do it. Whenever we have had IJs just like everyone else has had in 2025 and not in 2026, knock on wood, but in 2025. And we have made the determination that we're not going to participate because we feel like it's a flawed system. There's no due process.
Yeah.
There's no due process.
Yeah. So I actually authored a piece of legislation when I was in the legislature, obviously, that would have would have required actually the State Department to contract with a third-party vendor for the IDR process. Because of that. There's no reason why someone from the panel should reach out to me and say, in the parking lot, 10 seconds after it ended, hey, we did agree with you, but we can't overturn it because they may survey us next.
Exactly.
That's
and we know there's retaliation
ridiculous.
coming. That's ridiculous. It should never be. It's the prisoners running the jail. And there's no way that should be like that.
Yeah.
We now file all of ours federally in court. At that point, we get to ask for evidence. We get to call witnesses.
Yeah.
Because the IDR process in itself, you can't question the surveyor. You can't
Right.
question the process.
Yeah. Well, and when we did our IDR, the surveyor who ended up leaving the department, she didn't want to go to the IDR process because she just didn't agree with the deficiency in the first place. So her supervisor, who told her she had to write the deficiencies, sat at the end of the table. It was a U-shaped table, and she sat at the end of the table and she scoffed the entire time. When we were presenting our argument, the whole time it was and just laughed. And
Wow.
I mean, so disrespectful.
Right.
And that's not a fair process.
No, not at all. Not at all. And so we have chosen to go the federal legal route every time. I know you're a friend of the organization. You keep up with our stuff. You saw we've won our last two, and we will continue to do so.
Yeah.
And I think the big thing is, from a constitutional standpoint,
Right.
from the Oklahoma State Constitution, from the U.S. Constitution, it's a simple due process. I cannot be deprived of life, liberty, and property without due process, and
Right.
I get none of that with this.
Yeah.
It's, we think you're wrong, we're taking the money now. You don't get to question it, you don't get to call witnesses, you don't get to face your accuser,
Right.
but you're in the wrong. And I
Right.
think that's, in a separate industry, in the food care or food service industry,
Yeah.
if you go in and they write you a deficiency with monetary penalty because, I don't know, you didn't cook the chicken all the way or whatever you did wrong,
Sure.
you actually get to go before a judge advocate and plead your case and present evidence. And I'm like, how is it that a restaurant gets to do that, but we are caring for lives in a nursing home and we don't have that process?
Right.
I don't.
Yeah.
I know that's probably not
I'm
even a
with
real
ya.
question. It's like how is
No,
this
I'm
a
with
thing?
you. And I don't know. I mean, that's just the truth of it. I don't know. And it was mind-blowing to me that the bill that I had authored didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But
How is that controversial? Third-party
I have
transparency.
yet to figure that out. Yeah, I still don't know. Maybe personality conflicts in the legislature. I'm
Yeah.
not really sure. But the reality is it's not fair.
Right.
And there needs to be a systemic change because everyone, to your point, does deserve due process.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if I get accused of murdering you today, at least I get to say who accused me, what's the evidence
Right.
presented against me before they just give me a lifetime
Yeah.
sentence in jail.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for
Whereas
sure.
here, we get lifetime sentence instantly just because
Right.
someone suspected we did something wrong.
Yeah, well, and that's really why I wanted that third party.
Yeah.
Because right now, the State Department is the judge, the jury, and the executioner.
Right. Right.
There's a problem with that.
But yet they have an oversight board. The Long Term Care Advisory Board.
Yep.
You knew I was going to bring this one up too.
Yeah.
Philip Miller is the staff person for this. I guess he would be considered their liaison
Right.
for this board. So out of the last 8 quarterly meetings, they have made one. They have made one.
I'm kind of shocked that they've even had a quorum at all to be able to have the advisory board. That
Okay.
was something. So we did some restructuring legislatively of the board a couple years ago. I think
Because it was like 30 people were supposed to be on this
Yeah.
board, and they cut it down to is it 12 now?
I think it's 12
Okay.
or 13, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think John Michael Montgomery, Senator Montgomery ran that. And I remember him coming to me and saying, what do you think about this? I think it was a House bill that made its way to the Senate, and he came and asked my opinion. And I said, honestly, I don't think they've met in like 3 years
Right.
because they haven't had a quorum because there were so many people. I don't know. I have had some constituents that were appointed to the Long-Term Care Advisory Board who were really excited about advocating for seniors and advocating for individuals that live in nursing homes and assisted living and all of the things. And they were really disappointed to know that they couldn't even get a quorum because they thought that they went with the intention of doing good work, and then to just see that it's not really beneficial to the population is kind of the words that I kept getting.
Okay.
So I don't know. Unfortunately, there's no incentive for anyone to do anything about it.
Right.
Or at least that's how they feel, I
Right.
think. And so it's just gross.
Do you feel like it's intentional on the departments to not have a quorum?
I don't necessarily think that. I think that it's just a lack of, because there's a lot of people involved in that structure. Like you've got citizens, you've got
A pharmacy rep, you've
yes,
got
like all of the people
an
who
owner, an
yes,
operator, an administrator
yes,
kind of thing.
Yes, but unfortunately, you've probably heard the saying, if you want something done, ask someone who's really busy,
Right. Sure.
So I think a lot of the people who do have influence in the long-term care pharmacy industry or the, board of nursing or whatever, I think those people are really busy. And so for them, their business is a priority or their job is a priority or whatever. And so I personally don't know that it's like an incentive for them not to have it as much as it's not a priority because it's hard to get all of those players to the table, which is why I would love to see it continue to be kind of narrowed down a little bit, maybe break it up and have some different committees or something, because what we're doing isn't working.
Okay. One of the things that I talked about even last month was that, and what my advice, suggestion, or I don't know what I was calling it, but regardless, yes, I understand you have to have a quorum to vote and to take action, but you don't have to have a quorum to meet. Right? If we're saying there's a 12-member panel and we've got to have 7 to take action and 6 show up, we can still receive information. You've been in state government, you know how this works. I've been in city government. You know what I mean? It's like we can't take any action, but we can still receive your presentations. We can still ask questions. We can't take any action on it, but we can still hold the meetings. We can receive public comment.
Yeah. So I'm not well versed on like the Public Meetings Act and all of that. I know that there has been a lot of push to move Oklahoma into the 21st century, maybe,
right,
and do some virtual meetings and stuff like that. I haven't really been following that just because it doesn't really impact me a whole lot, but you have to make sure that you're not violating any state statute. Like I know, for example, you can't have 2 county commissioners in the same room because that, or more than 2 or whatever, in Stevens County, because that constitutes a quorum.
Exactly.
And so I think if you have X amount, but you may not have, a quorum, I would be concerned about Open Meetings Act violations.
Yeah.
So,
and I know where you're going. It's a roaming quorum, basically. It's like, hey, the 2 of us are here talking, the third comes up, and I'm going to leave, and we'll talk about what we talked about, then I'll leave. This person, you're doing a roaming quorum.
Exactly.
People get arrested for those kinds of things.
Yeah, they do.
It's a big thing in Texas.
And so I think that might be some of the fear of like just meeting anyway. But I think that if we could open it up and do some virtual meeting, because we have technology now. I don't know if people are aware.
We bought all these iPads during COVID.
With the CMP money, so we might as well use them. Yeah. So I think that that's part of it. It's just we're so stuck in not doing things in the new age way, where a lot of people, because you have to have people from across the state or it's not representative of the industry, in my opinion. We don't need, just like we don't need 48 senators from, Oklahoma City. That would be terrible.
Right.
But we also don't need 48 from Marlow.
Right.
I would love that.
You would love that. That would be good for you, right?
That, but not good for the population.
Right.
And so, I think that that's another problem is you want to get people from the Panhandle. Well, it's a 5-hour drive to Oklahoma City. So, I don't know. I think that just the Open Meetings Act, and I think just my world views and experiences regarding the agencies, boards, and commissions probably have a little bit different perspective.
Okay.
But I hear you, and I think it would seem, or it would appear as if they do have an incentive not to meet, because you don't want people holding you accountable if you're doing something wrong.
Right.
But
or ask questions.
Or take
public comment. All of those things.
Sure.
It's like, no, we'd rather just stay over in our little hidey hole here at the government agency instead of having to come out and face people.
Yeah, and like I said, I hear you. I don't necessarily think you're wrong, and that may have been where it started and it's just gotten worse from there, because I am a huge believer in government transparency and accountability. And so at some point, something has to give. But I think that starts with broadening the scope of using technology in those meetings so that you can have a quorum and so that you can have open dialogue and discussion. And I think it really starts there.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think you're right. Speaking of government transparency, let's have a conversation.
I'm going to love whatever this question is. I already know.
Just because we had a person that was pretty out in the forefront, coming to association meetings, especially during COVID, had a very big voice. Dr. Latrina Frazier, as a director of the department. All of a sudden, one day, she's gone.
Yeah.
We received no notice. It was just like, oh, she's no longer here. We're not told anything about why the departure happened. There was I mean, you and I can have differing opinions on. I think she was terrible. As far as the quality of work, in my opinion, I think it was politically biased. It was driven depending on who you were, what facility you were. There's a lot of things that have come out now as far as a lot of nepotism that's gone on inside the department. There's pending civil litigation. There's some a lot of things going on with wrongful terminations and that kind of thing under her tenure. And so I guess at what level do we get to know more about what happened here?
Yeah. I hate that for every industry because we've seen it not just with Department of Health. We've seen it with the, I can't think of her name, the former Secretary Shelley, lost it, but several different departments within the state. It's just one day they're gone.
Right.
And it's frustrating, especially whenever I was in the legislature.
Sure.
Because it was like, well, don't you feel like because we fund you, we give you money, that we should have some sort of conversation about this? Or, I mean, it would be like, one of our head nurses getting fired at our hospice.
And we just act like it didn't happen.
And we just pretend like nothing ever happened.
Right.
Like, for me, that's a problem.
That's an issue.
And so, yeah, I know just conversations that I've heard after Dr. Frazier left. I know that there were some very disgruntled employees because she was preventing some IJs and some harm tags and things from getting written. Because
must have been certain ones, because it wasn't anyone that if anything, she's pushing them to write them.
Well, and that's what I think has been interesting. I mean, I know you and I have talked about that. You all's experience, and so it has been really interesting and fascinating to kind of figure those things out or hear these stories, because it's my understanding that was one of the reasons that she was told to leave, because, CMS is saying you have to write all these IJs, and she's saying, I don't necessarily agree that should have been an IJ. And so, but to your point, I mean, you've had situations where even the IDR panel has said,
that wasn't an IJ.
Right. And then the state has said, yes, it was. And so I think for me, there's not a lot of continuity, and there's not a lot of, there's just not a lot of continuity and consistency within the state. And we see it in every agency, right? Like, I mean, I was complaining the other day to DHS because you have some Advantage members that are on Advantage, like Medicaid Advantage and assisted livings in certain areas of the state, that if they are diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia, their case managers are making them leave their assisted living where they've lived for 7-8 years. And then you go to other areas of the state where that they're not held to the same standard. If someone has dementia or Alzheimer's, they're able to age in place. So that law has now changed, but even within DHS, there's just no consistency. And so I don't know how you get that. I mean, because they are such huge agencies, I don't know how to fix that. I know there have been talks about, Senator Rosino ran a bill to separate out child welfare from DHS. Maybe that's what needs to happen with long-term care. Maybe it needs to be its own entity or its own agency and be away from the State Department, just to where there's more accountability and more transparency, and it's a smaller agency, so you don't have one commissioner that's, overseeing 50 different departments or divisions of that agency. I don't know. I don't know what the right solution is, but I think until you, and I mean, it's just like with you, right? Like, you have, how many employees do you have?
Well, right now, about 600 and some odd employees.
Only that many?
Only, right?
So one of your nurse aides in a facility, or one of your nurses, or one of your maintenance staff or dietary staff, somebody screws up, and you don't necessarily know about every single screw up, right?
Absolutely not.
And so I think that's really what happens. Like, you have an agency that's that large, whether it's your building of almost 700 employees, or you have the State Department of Health that's a couple thousand probably, or maybe 1,000, who knows. Right. I think Commissioner Reed truly has the heart of a servant, and I think he wants to do the right thing, but I think he has so many rogue people underneath him that it's hard to contain all of that, just like it's hard for you to contain 700 people and their actions. You don't want people to screw up. Okay. You don't want people to get hurt, but you also can't be at the back of, on the back every single person, or of every single person that works with you every single day. Neither can I.
Makes sense.
And so, I've got 100+ employees at our hospice, and some days they mess up, and some days I mess up.
Right.
And because we're human, but you've got to have consistency from leadership. And whether that's Dr. Frazier or Commissioner Reed or the lead surveyors or whatever, I just think that we lack consistency.
I completely agree. And so bringing that to the table, how consistent do you think we're going to be? I'm sure you saw the latest memo last month. We're now hiring outside federal contract surveyors because we can't keep staff at OSDH.
Well, we've done that actually for a long time.
Okay.
So one of the things, I asked that question whenever I was in the Senate, because my question was, how are you asking for a flat budget when you can't keep enough surveyors to employ to survey the facilities that you're supposed to be surveying?
Right.
I think that's a fair question.
I think that's a very fair question.
I think it's a fair question, because you can't increase pay to get people to come apply, and then for whatever reason the turnover is high.
It's completely toxic.
So,
I mean, it really is. I mean, let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
If my organization ran at that kind of a turnover rate, which it doesn't, but if it did, that would be a major red flag as a company
Right.
to go, no,
what are we doing
What
wrong?
are we doing here?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I think we've done it in the past. We've used federal contractors in the past, and I think a lot of it, and it hasn't necessarily always been under Dr. Frazier and Commissioner Reed. I mean, it's been under Mike Cook. I believe that he used federal contractors at one point, and I don't know how long, and I may be misspeaking. I don't think that I am, but I might be wrong.
Okay.
But I know in the past we have used federal contractors to do surveys in the state of Oklahoma. And so it's not necessarily out of line for what a lot of other states do. And I mean, in my opinion, I would almost rather somebody come out of another state that is non-biased and provide some consistency.
Yeah, I can see that. Absolutely, I can see that. I think where I get a little bit going, oh, yeah, but we have so many state regs. So how is someone from Michigan going to go,
I can answer that.
Hey.
Yeah, I can answer that for you. So typically the way it works in other states, I've done a lot of research on this. So you have your licensure survey, and then you have your federal survey. So you get your L tags, your K tags, and your F tags. So when the federal surveyors are coming in, they're looking for your compliance for your F tags. And then your state surveyors that are employed by the state are just coming in and looking for your licensure tags. And so while a lot of those things happen at the same time, the things that are not consistent among every state, those federal surveyors are looking at those things.
Do you think that will happen? Because you and I talk a lot about theory, and this is how it should happen, but as far as locked in the room, 5 people around the table, everyone's got a laptop up. Do you think those state people are just looking at state stuff, or do you think they're really going, oh, I saw this in the med pass, and I saw this, and in the kitchen I went there, and it was like, you think?
Some of it overlaps.
Okay.
Some of it overlaps, but I think having people come in with a non-biased opinion of a facility or of an owner or of a former legislator that they didn't like a bill I ran or whatever it is, because it does happen.
Or for someone that likes to speak up.
Yeah, I don't know anybody.
I don't know
that.
anyone like that
It's
either.
weird.
I don't know anyone
It's
like
weird.
that either.
But yeah, I just think that it will provide some clarity, and I would hope. I guess maybe I'm the optimist at this table. But I'm the optimist today.
That's okay.
But I would hope that what happens is those surveyors can rub off on ours that are maybe not as consistent.
Sure.
To say, no, you're actually wrong. Here's what the regulation says. Because a lot of it isn't about interpretation, right?
Right.
So I think that's where the consistency lacks. And it's not just in Oklahoma. It happens in other states as well. I mean, I have friends that operate facilities from East Coast to West Coast, and they see it everywhere. And so I think, unfortunately, the bigger states probably are less consistent.
Okay.
I mean, used to, I can tell you, when I worked for Farm Care USA, we operated in Texas, and their surveyor mentality was so much different.
It's very different there.
But it's starting to be the same.
Really?
It is. There are places in Texas where we service through hospice that have said, Oklahoma is pouring over into our state as far as the survey mentality.
Really?
And so that's why I really truly believe it is federal. It's a federal push, because when you're seeing surveyors in Texas doing the same thing that we're seeing surveyors in Oklahoma by pushing these IJs, I don't believe that it's just Oklahoma, because I'm seeing it in other places where we operate.
Okay.
So although that shouldn't give me peace, it also gives me a little bit of peace, because I'm like, well, they're getting screwed in Texas too.
But the only difference is their reimbursement rate's probably double ours.
Oh, yeah.
So
well,
that's a whole other
and they have the
conversation.
UPLs, like they have upper payment limit,
Right.
and they have things that we don't have access to. I mean, we do, but not to the extent they do in Texas. To your point, they have a different economy down there. They're not as heavily reliant on oil and gas as we are. I mean, they are to a certain extent, but for in Oklahoma, that's like our primary source of income. And so as the cycle of gas and oil changes, ebbs and flows, the state does the same.
Yeah.
That's why we've got to diversify our income. We've got to diversify our economy.
You know, in operating, because I did operate in Texas as well for 4.5 years, and so looking at the Texas operation there, there was a different survey mentality. And what was so interesting when I came here, we will have surveyors enter a building on Monday at 9 a.m. and then Friday at 3 p.m., and this is on a complaint survey. They've been here 5 days. And at Friday at 3 p.m., we're calling an IJ.
Yeah.
Why didn't you do that on Monday? Like,
Right.
And I
Sure.
think that was the difference in
Yeah.
Texas. Is we walked in, they said you had an elopement. I'm using that as an example.
Yeah.
You've got an elopement. We're going to investigate it. Boom, you clearly was. We're going to write you an
Right.
IJ for it. We want to exit if we can today or
Yeah.
tomorrow at best. Can we get
Yeah.
out of here?
Yeah.
We have surveyors sitting in our buildings. I don't know what they're
For
doing half
days
the
and
time.
days and days. But you know, it's
But
not.
yet they can't get to everywhere. And I want to go,
Yeah.
you know what? I could have solved this in 20 minutes.
Right.
Why are you still here
Yeah.
4 days later?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What is
Well,
the process
so
with that?
We actually had the same thing, not just in long-term care, but we actually had the same thing with the hospice survey recently, where we had another hospice that just wanted to cause problems for us. And so they called in a complaint that was completely unfounded. But that surveyor dug and dug and dug and dug. And she was there for 3 or 4 days on somebody saying that we were operating without a license. I'm like,
That could have been solved in 20
Really?
minutes. You know what I mean? Right.
Yeah.
Like that's a
And-
20-minute lookup. Okay, you are sorry. This is
You know,
unsustained.
and also, if CMS is paying us, chances are we probably have a license.
Right,
So,
exactly. You know, so
yeah.
there again, I guess I don't understand the
Yeah.
process. I've not released it. I do have it though. We had at one of our facilities last year, we had a surveyor come in on 2 complaints in a particular facility. He'd been there before. The surveyor was there for 6 days. And we had an internet data issue pop up on our router that we were using too much data. And I'm going, what is going on? And so our IT department goes in and goes through and says, what, are we using too much data somewhere? What's
Sure.
going on here?
Fixing a problem.
Yeah, fixing a problem. Is
Yeah.
someone running a server in their room that
Sure,
we don't know
yeah.
about? Or what are we doing?
Yeah.
Are we launching nuclear?
Data center,
Yeah, data center at the
residence
healthcare
rooms,
center. I'm
yeah,
like, what is
yeah.
going on? And the reason why we get kind of spooky about that kind of stuff, because there's a ton of things that could be not good on the internet that's
Right.
maybe going
Sure.
on. So we're like,
Yeah.
what is happening here? Come to find out, no, it was pinged back to the surveyor, and it was Netflix usage and Grindr.
Oh my.
And he was in our building for 6 days for 2 complaints. Received phone calls that said he was just really busy going through it all. And one of them he wrote, it was something kind of small, and the other one was unsubstantiated. And you would have known that within the first 4 hours.
Sure. Right.
And I'm like, what are we doing
I was
here?
binge watching.
Netflix.
Yeah.
He got through a whole series
Yeah.
on my data.
Listen, I mean, it's not a bad gig if we're really being honest.
Absolutely right. And then I look at it and go, but at the same
Are they hiring surveyors?
You know,
Like-
that's what I'm saying. Why can I not do that
Yeah.
job? I'd love to do that. I can really get caught up on hacks. You
Yeah.
know? So, but I look at it and I go, but yet we can't get to everything we're supposed to be getting
Right.
to.
Yeah.
And I think there's this whole thing about we need to be in and out. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Let's get in, because the reality
efficiency.
is it's efficiency and there's none. And I
Yeah.
think that comes from the top.
Well, and I mean, I would agree with you in the fact that it's government accountability and transparency. Like, if the state legislature knew that story, I guarantee you there's going to be some hacked off legislators, because they appropriate funding, and when we are paying more to an outside contractor to come in, and I don't know if it's more, I'm assuming it is, because
It
contract
always
labor
is,
always
right?
is. When that happens and the legislature's having to appropriate dollars, and you've got a surveyor that's sitting in your back conference room on Netflix binge watching, The Bachelor. I don't
Yeah.
know if that's on Netflix,
Oh,
but if it
yeah.
is, that's what I probably would watch. But I mean, that's my point. Like, that's state dollars. Those are taxpayer dollars. That is fraud to the state, and it should be addressed.
I agree. Okay, I agree. Last thing I want to end on with you.
Last thing, as you dig through
as
12
I dig
different cards.
I don't get you here. And when I get you here, I want to talk to you.
We could do this all the time.
Talk to you so much. And so, I'm sure you have seen the tag that we are often written. It's an IJ, failure to protect.
Yeah, I
right.
love that
We
one.
love that one, right?
love
It's like
that
you
one.
failure to protect two residents, get into a fist fight. It's failure to protect.
Yep.
One resident kicks another resident, failure to protect. One
Yeah.
verbally assaults it, it's failure to protect. It's our
Right.
fault. And I'm
Yeah.
like going, how is it my fault? I can't.
You
we
should
don't run a
have
prison.
read the future.
I guess I should have read the future. No, but I think
You
failure.
need like a Ouija board for that stuff.
It's like we should have known not to let those people have lunch in the same room. I'm like, what
You're
in the world
such
are
a
we talking
jerk.
about? It's terrible. And so I guess I'm looking at this one here, and this is still not been proven in court, but this gentleman, Jacob Israel Walden, also known as Jake Walden. He's 38 years old. He is the co-owner of Emerald Healthcare. Was arrested July 31st, 2024. He was indicted and arraigned on January 22nd, 2025. He still remains in custody, and it's 11 cases or 11 different instances of child pornography and exploitation of a child and a minor, and now they're adding 2 additional counts, and he could face, if found guilty, up to 25 years in prison for this. And I'm looking, he is still detained in custody as of June of 2026, pending trial. And you know what he also still remains on? The CON.
Wow.
Emerald Healthcare.
Is that, I guess innocent till proven guilty.
Absolutely.
But that's interesting.
How is that?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I look at this and I go, we are constantly being hit for failure to protect.
Right.
How is
Sure.
the state failing to protect vulnerable seniors in this home with someone that has now been arrested, indicted, and still in custody? Doesn't even make bond.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I would love to know the answer.
And where's the transparency about that too? When to me, I look at that and I go, I thought our CON process was supposed to protect against
Sure.
individuals, and we're dealing with vulnerable.
Yeah.
I can't have anyone in my building without a background check. You know what I mean? Those kinds of things. So I'm looking at this, I'm going, how does this line up with any type of transparency, any type of accountability, any type of protecting vulnerable residents,
Sure.
or family members, or anyone else?
Yeah, well, and I would be interested to know when the most recent CON has been obtained by that individual, because, obviously, you have to be of noble character to get your CON. And so I would be really interested to know that, if it is just a loophole in the process somewhere that needs to be closed. If the CONs that he is on were obtained prior to these, the arrest and
Correct.
and the charges. Again, innocent until
He
proven
is still
guilty.
innocent till proven
And so
guilty, absolutely.
I would say he probably has every right until he's proven guilty to be on that CON, but I would definitely be doing some research if I were the state.
I'd want to know what's going on in this case, right? And why it's so buried
and maybe
down.
Maybe they are, and it's just not out in public. I don't know. I don't know.
I just hope his trial is not anything like our state visits and complaint surveys,
Right.
because he'll be guilty and sentenced all in the same day.
Yeah, no kidding, and have like a $2 million CMP.
Exactly,
on top of
that you
it.
can't even pay. So that's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Jessica, thank you so much for being here
Yeah, of
today.
course.
You are always so awesome to talk to. I love you so much. I think of you as a friend in this industry and a huge advocate, and to come in and just hash some current issues and things means so much to us. And
Well, I appreciate the invitation. I know we've been talking about this for a long time, so I appreciate the invitation and having the opportunity to come and sit down. I feel like we could talk policy all day long.
all day
so
long, and we'll solve
let me
all
know.
the world's problems.
Amen.
So thank you for joining us on the channel. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, anywhere you get all of your information, TikTok. We'll see you next time. Until then, take care of one another and love yourself.
So good. I like it.
Awesome! Give me more champagne for that.